Hey guys, welcome back to Vince-Vell Custom. So today we're going to start a work in progress video on how to use Aves with baby powder and roll it out to create a sash for this Dark Phoenix statue I'm working. The principle is the same thing as if you're baking a pie. You use flour and dough and you're able to roll it out and put it into a pan. It's the same thing what we're doing with Aves with baby powder. Now you have to use talc-free baby powder. And you got to make sure it doesn't have like a really lot of fragrance in it, because I found that some certain brands with a lot of chemicals and fragrances actually react and it breaks down the Aves and it becomes a pain in the ass basically. But with this stuff Dawn Mist that I found, you could probably get this stuff at hospitals, or you have to order it online in a big bulk. You can't find them separately. So it's Dawn Mist baby powder talc free. It's with the blue label. I ordered it. It's like 144 of them. It was the cheapest one for $30. But the good thing is I use this stuff for if you make a mold and you're casting. This stuff is great to just dust in there, so you don't have to use mold release and all this other stuff. So it's really good stuff, and I've been finding a lot of uses for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up on the floor. I'll give you an idea of everything you need to do this. What I'm going to do is mark around the statue exactly where I'm going to probably put the sash. So it's going to be doing it in a couple sections. We're going to roll out the Aves with the baby powder. Once it hardens, it gets stiffer, I'll be able to wrap it around to the point, let that sit one night. You come back the next day, you build one part of the sash, then you build another part of the sash another night, and then what we do is we create a symbol to put onto the sash, and then there you go, you have the piece done. So we'll get on the floor. I'll show you exactly all the parts and stuff you need. It's really not that much. It's just a little bit of a time thing to get it, like, you know, working out pretty cool, because we want to get that tautness going across here, because if you try to sculpt it yourself and then push it, you're pushing A's back and forth and it gets all messy. But the way I kind of came up with it and putting it around, it works out easier. So get on the floor, we'll show everything that you need, we'll come back and we'll just start working on it. Okay guys, so this is everything we're going to need for the project. It's really not a lot, it's just more like of a technique than anything. So you want to have is wax paper. You know, you can go to any store and pick it up. Basic wax paper, you know, in the food aisle type stuff. You need a rolling pin. You don't really need a rolling pin. You can use other things if you have any other kind of rollers, but it's easier just to go over to a dollar store, pick up rolling pin. This way, if you get it marked up like this one is and get gunked on it, you can throw it away down the line. I had this for about 7 years, but I'm thinking about getting a new one only because it's really marked up pretty bad. But paintbrush I use for the safety solvent, plus I usually sculpt with paintbrushes. It's just my thing. X-Acto knife, you want to make sure you have a nice sharp blade. That one right there is worn out, so I got to put a new one on. A ruler or any kind of straight edge you want to use. Your baby powder, your Aves epoxy sculpt. This is red, but it doesn't really matter what color it is. Just color is color. And then you need your safety solvent from Aves. This helps out a lot for when you want to get the piece stuck to the statue. So the next step is marking up the statue with some pencil. I'll show you guys how I do set all that up. And then once that's done, we just, you know, mix up the Aves. You let it sit for an hour or so. Come back, cut your piece, and we start wrapping it up and creating the sash. Okay guys, so before I actually mix my A's and before I'm actually going to do the belt, I actually like to mark where I'm going to do it. So I do draw a lot on my statues to kind of give me ideas and guides. So I have a mechanical pencil with blue lead in it. As you can kind of see, it's just, you know, typical mechanical pencil with blue lead. The reason why I like the blue is because it goes on the primer statue pretty well, as you can kind of see. You could draw on it. And then if you want to actually sand off, you just use some sandpaper and it comes off just like an eraser. I like to use this because the regular lead pencil kind of doesn't go on too well as much, and sometimes it just creates a lot of dust and dirt, and just the blue pencil is kind of more, it's easier. So I'm looking at the pose and I'm looking at a line of cosplay girls, Dark Phoenix drawings, and I'm trying to see where a lot of them have the belts these days. So it seems like the belt kind of comes low around here, the crotch area, and then goes up around there. Some of them actually have it way down here. It comes around, like, around the butt almost. And because this leg's up, and I kind of want to find that spot where I think it looks good. So I was putting it on the base, and I had the head on. And first I had it up high, coming down to, like, around here. But then I was like, nah. So I found a nice little spot right here. Now, this is just a guide. I might not actually hit this guy completely when I put the sash on, but it just helps. And then what I do here is I kind of mark just to give me an idea of where the knot will come when I'm ready to do the knot and the little symbol. And then over here, you know, we'll start putting the sash work going down around there type stuff. So it's just a drawing, it's a sketch. It just helps me, you know, see what I'm going to do, how it's all going to work out. So that's that step. Now, it's getting kind of late. I'm not sure I'm going to do the Aves tonight, but we'll come back when I'm ready to set up the Aves. We'll roll it out, and I'll show you how I start sculpting it all onto it. Alright guys, I mixed up my Aves now, and I'm going to actually roll out the Aves with the baby powders to show you that. And then it's going to sit for like an hour or so, and then we'll come back and we'll start working out the sash. Now, as I was working on the sash, I decided I might do it like in sections a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of show you what I'm coming up with. I don't think I'm going to do one whole sash in one shot. I've been toying around with some different ways. So I like to mix up enough Aves just in case, because I got to kind of wrap it around the statue, so I want to make sure I have enough. And I always roll up my extra Aves and balls when I'm done for filler of like bases and stuff down the line. So just to give you an idea, take the baby powder, throw it all over the wax paper, and then as you can see, it would stick to it normally, but with this, you kind of just roll it around. Just like, you know, cooking, pastries type stuff, and all that. But so we need to work it long because we want to wrap it around and we want to have enough. So what I like to do is kind of stretch it out this way. Make sure you get enough. And then if you start rolling this way, it kind of goes all over the place. So I kind of like to try to keep it flat right away. Just kind of go like that. And then you can kind of keep it going. And then turn it. Now if it starts sticking to you, that's because you're hitting some of the other spots. So you got to kind of flip it. Just like bacon, basically. It's good coming from a big Italian family too, because I grew up with a lot of, my mother always baking and cooking. So this way, just use it into the art form. So I got enough here. It's at a good thick, you know, thinness. It's not too thin, but it's not too thick. The way I'm thinking of doing it is I'm going to have to cut two strips, because I'm going to do the top part of the sash and the bottom part of the sash, let that sit, and then because I'll have the tautness going around the body parts, I'll be able to sculpt the sash wrinkles afterwards, but I'll show you all that later. So now that we have enough length, it's enough thinness, just to make sure. You don't want to go too thin, because rolling it this way you can really stretch it too thin. But we got enough. Looks good. So we'll be back in probably like an hour or so once this hardens up, because if you try to, you know, mess with it now, it's kind of, it'll start stretching on you and everything. But you want to kind of make sure it doesn't stick. So what we'll do is we'll throw some more baby powder around here. Kind of just get it around. And we're good to go. So we'll be back in like an hour or so once it starts hardening up. Maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on, you know, how much other work I got to do and everything. So that's the first step of the whole process. So we'll be back. Alright, so what we're going to do is going to cut out the strips now. It's actually been about an hour and a half. It's fairly still pliable, but it's a little bit stiffer now, and it won't actually like sag as much. So you get your X-Acto knife, sharp one, and you kind of just go slow, let the knife do its thing. You don't want to pull too much. And we cut off a little piece there. Put that over there. Now you want to make sure that it's not tacky and stuff, otherwise when you pull up the ruler, it'll go. Now looking at the statue, for the top part, I'm going to cut a strip about that big. That'll work good for that. And you want to make sure you cut. Alright. Went a little bit off on the angle, but that's okay. I just need a nice long strip like that. Now, for the next one, it's going to be a little thicker. So you want to make sure you press down too. Alright. So So for this one, we're going to go a little bit thicker, about that thick. And maybe a little more, just to be on the safe side. Let's see. That's okay, not a problem. Okay, so we'll go turn up the camera onto the statue, we'll get it set up there, and we'll start working it out. Alright, so I guess what we're going to do is we're going to start with the bottom strip first. So what you do is you take your safety solvent, dip it in your finger, and you kind of start taking off the baby powder. Just got to keep working it. This helps get the Aves tacky again. Because if you try to put it onto the statue with the baby powder, it just falls off. So we got that on. Now this is kind of the pain process. It's kind of, sometimes I mess up and I have to do it over again. But what we'll do is we take it and kind of wrap it around to where we want it. See how it kind of starts coming off a little bit here and there? So you got to kind of get it tacky again. Now maybe because I have too big of a piece too, it's kind of hard to work with. So maybe we'll do down a little bit further. Come back around. It's good to have a turntable. That's how it looks back here. So maybe what we'll do is we'll go with the butt first, bring it over about here, and we'll just pull that piece off. We'll come back over here. So I kind of like where it's at. Let's get our X-Acto blade, and what we kind of want to do is lines up here. So the line would come and cut right about there. And then what we'll do is we'll cut right about there, and then cut this here. Alright, and then what we do is go back to this piece, try to get its tautness back again. Okay. Now when I press down, it's not even over here, and then what you can do is when you're in that position, you can just take your X-Acto and even that out a little bit. Alright, so looking at it, turning it, I kind of like the way it's looking in the back, and then from there you get your paintbrush if you have to. You can kind of even it up a bit. So the idea is here it's taut and it's thin. We're not pushing it in, and the same thing over here. It's fairly taut, and I kind of like to sag this a little bit. Okay, now of course, you know, the problem is when you go for painting, you gotta paint underneath, but you get that shadow coming down. And then working out wrinkles and stuff comes later. But what we do is we take our other piece, our other little thinner strip, get this all set up.